Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in. Today, I'll be talking about weight-based cyber victimization among adolescents, both in terms of prevalence among a community sample and associated health-related correlates. This work was conducted together with Rebecca Poole at the University of Connecticut. Weight-based victimization, or targeted peer harassment that is specifically due to body weight, is a common experience for many teens. Across sociodemographic groups, body weight is consistently reported to be the primary reason that youth are teased and bullied by their peers. Prevalence estimates suggest that a quarter to a half of all youth have been bullied due to their body weight. In the school setting, nearly 80% of adolescents have observed weight-based victimization. And the prevalence of weight-based victimization is particularly concerning given its harmful health consequences. We know from cross-sectional studies and considerable longitudinal evidence that adolescents victimized due to their body weight by peers experience adverse health outcomes that persist into adulthood, including somatic symptoms, psychological distress, and disordered eating behaviors. Existing research surrounding weight-based victimization among youth has focused almost entirely on weight-based victimization as it occurs in offline contexts, particularly in the school setting and the home environment. However, the online context is becoming an increasingly salient context for peer victimization, especially amid the COVID-19 pandemic, and it is therefore important to consider the impact electronic forms of weight-based victimization may have on adolescents. To date, research tells us that adolescents with higher body weight are more likely to experience cyber victimization in general compared to their average weight peers. But what about electronic mistreatment that specifically targets weight? How common is this, and what are the implications? The current understanding of weight-based cyber victimization stems primarily from a 2013 study of weight loss treatment-seeking youth. This study found that more than 58% of the sample had experienced weight-based cyber victimization, and that such experiences were in turn associated with poorer academic performance. And while this study provides foundational evidence, investigation into weight-based cyber victimization and its health-related implications is warranted in community samples of adolescents, given that weight-based victimization targets and can compromise the health of youth of all body shapes and sizes. As such, the current study was designed to assess the prevalence of weight-based cyber victimization within a community sample of adolescents, as well as the health-related correlates or implications of such mistreatment. And these questions are particularly timely in light of the upsurge in both electronic communication as well as weight stigma during the COVID-19 pandemic. These research questions were tested among a sample of 452 adolescents between the ages of 11 and 17, residing primarily in the Northeast region of the United States. The sample, while largely white, was approximately half female, and about a quarter of the youth had a BMI greater than or equal to the 85th percentile. These youth completed an online survey, which included a battery of questions related to weight stigma during the fall of 2020. To assess weight-based cyber victimization, adolescents were asked to indicate whether their peers have done any of the following to them on social media, online, or via text. Specifically, embarrassed or insulted your weight, made fun of you because of your weight, called you mean or hurtful names because of your weight, spread lies or rumors about you because of your weight, left you out of a group or activity because of your weight, ignored you because of your weight, sent or posted mean or hurtful pictures or videos because of your weight, or threatened you because of your weight. Weight-based teasing and name-calling on social media, online, and via text were the most common forms of weight-based cyber victimization experienced by adolescents, while forms of exclusion, such as ignoring and threats because of weight, were less common. Overall, 33%, or 1 in 3 adolescents, reported at least one experience of weight-based cyber victimization. Prevalence of weight-based cyber victimization was significantly elevated among adolescents with overweight and obesity. For example, 60% of adolescents with obesity indicated having experienced some form of weight-based cyber victimization, and 45% of those with overweight reported prevalence of such experiences. A similar pattern of results emerged within overweight and obese weight status in terms of the incidence of each form of weight-based cybervictimization, as did in the overall sample. In the subsequent analyses of health-related correlates, we collapse all forms of weight-based cybervictimization, utilizing the overall prevalence of at least one weight-based cybervictimization experience as the main variable of interest. We examined how weight-based cybervictimization related to each of the following indicators of adolescent health. Specifically, somatic symptoms, which was operationalized as the frequency of experiencing any of the following symptoms in the last month: dizziness, headaches, chest pains, stomach aches, being very tired for no reason, nausea or poor appetite, as well as stress, which was 3 items adapted from the perceived stress scale, depression, which was operationalized as 10 items from Kucher's adolescent depression scale, and sleep trouble, which was 3 items assessing frequency of sleep problems in the last month. Regression models displaying health implications of weight-based cybervictimization are displayed here. Over and above sociodemographic covariates and weight status, we found that adolescents who experience weight-based cybervictimization reported higher levels of somatic symptoms, stress, depression, and sleep trouble compared to their peers who had not been victimized for their weight electronically. We also tested whether the associations between weight-based cybervictimization and adolescent health varied as a function of weight status. However, the two-way interactions between weight-based cybervictimization and weight status were non-significant for each of the 4 health outcomes, suggesting that the consequential health implications of weight-based cybervictimization were consistent and similar across adolescents regardless of their body weight. Taken together, our results indicated that 1 in 3 adolescents have experienced weight-based cybervictimization. And there is an especially high prevalence among adolescents with higher weight, including a majority of those with obesity. In addition, we found that across the 4 outcome indicators, weight-based cybervictimization was consistently associated with adverse health, including elevated somatic symptoms, heightened stress, increased depression, and greater sleep trouble. The study conclusions should be couched within a number of limitations that in turn provide important avenues for future research. For example, the sample was predominantly white, and therefore future studies are needed with greater sample diversity and representation across racial ethnic groups. Along with potential differences in incidence rates, it's possible that there may be compounded consequences for youth experiencing multiple forms of stigma-based victimization, such as race-based victimization, as well as sexuality-based or gender-based victimization. In addition, the study is limited by its cross-sectional design and reliance on self-report measures. It is unknown whether the health consequences are long-lasting and whether developmental timing in terms of onset of weight-based cybervictimization may play a role. Also, objective assessment of cybervictimization in adolescent health would shed light on whether the effects persist beyond shared method variants. And finally, future research could consider dosage effects. For example, whether health outcomes vary between adolescents and youth who experience weight-based victimization in person only versus electronic only versus in-person and electronic. Findings from the present study underscore the importance of addressing weight-based cybervictimization in anti-bullying initiatives to support healthy adolescent well-being. With growing recognition of the ubiquity of general cybervictimization among youth, it is important that awareness of electronic forms of weight-based victimization are acknowledged and intervention efforts are advanced. Through training and education, healthcare providers, parents, and teachers should be equipped with resources to support youth who are targets of weight-based cybervictimization. For example, normalizing feelings and encouraging youth to engage in self-compassion is likely to help support adolescents contending with victimization. And to encourage adolescents themselves to engage in dissenting behaviors during instances of weight-based cybervictimization, parents, providers, and teachers can encourage youth to challenge bullies and support the victim. And with that, I'd like to acknowledge and thank my mentor and co-author, Rebecca Poole, as well as funding agencies supporting the project and all participating families and youth. Thank you so much for your time.